Hello, we're on.
Good.
Great. Welcome to the Business and Economic Development Committee. It is 5:42. We are meeting on Wednesday due to the holiday. Voting members of this committee are Councilor Fish, Councilor Leonard, and I am Chair Hawes. We have two members that have been excused this evening. Around the table, we have, who did we not speak of? Councilor Dean and Councilor Fournier. And we also have Council Chair Pelletier. So, Director Krieg, are you ready?
I am.
First item,
Yeah.
lease extension. Oh, did you want to move it to the
I think
next one?
we'll move it, and go to the updates first, if that's okay.
Okay, we
Okay.
have updates. First one is vacant properties.
Um, the committee, chair had asked if we could give an update on how staff is working on vacant properties, and our city solicitors led the charge on this, and
All right.
so he's gonna do a quick update on
Yeah.
the work.
So just a quick update, we've been working together with staff from multiple departments to meet on a regular basis in larger and smaller groups to monitor and take action as allowed on vacant properties in Bangor, vacant buildings. And as you know, there are state and local regulations that apply to how the city can address these conditions, and we've been paying close attention to the process and have put together a robust internal protocol for how to deal with vacant properties from the time they end up on the list, that goes all the way through the process of trying to encourage people to register in compliance with the ordinance, to notifying them, that they are gonna need to renew during that period, to sending further notices if they don't file the registration to pay the registration fee, to then going toward enforcement at a higher and higher stage if enforcement is, if registration isn't happening, all the way up until whether the matter may need enforcement by way of working out an arrangement with the landowner, or even perhaps, going into a court process. And we continue the protocol beyond into, it even overlaps with the after we've acquired a property by way of, the unpaid tax liens, that can overlap into this protocol until we get to the point where we have hopefully additional properties for housing to assist with regard to the council's main priority this year, to work on the housing situation. So just wanted to let you know that the staff is confident that the new protocol will assist the city to lower the number of vacant buildings in Bangor and assist in combating the housing crisis. And so we're hoping that the new protocol will accomplish this. We're working together, and the timeline, we're trying to make it efficient and effective, and just want to give you that update to let you know that that's being worked on.
It's great that you have this. I know some of the questions that I hear from the public is, and it probably varies per building, but how long does it, from start to finish, does a building stay vacant before we can actually really come on hard and take it back?
It depends on whether they register and pay the registration fee or not. And now we have that new ordinance that we revised last year to increase the vacant registration fees, so that they double every 6 months.
Yes.
And so if the property is, if the property owner is complying with that, then it would be a longer period of time.
Sure.
If the property owner doesn't comply with that, or initially complies and then stops renewing the registration, then the period would be, there's a first notice, there's a second notice. There is contact from code enforcement and city solicitors office, and then we would have a situation where we might be able to work out this administrative consent agreement, and we'll probably be presenting shortly on that. Of refinement so that administrative consent agreements can be signed by staff to
Mhm.
make the process faster. That'll be coming before you shortly. And then if you can't work it out, then a court process. And the
Thank you.
court
I just-
process is relatively quick as court processes go.
Hmm.
But you, I,
Not going there.
yeah, I'm very experienced in those type of
Mhm.
proceedings.
Yes, you are.
And so, they're expedited proceedings is what they would call it in court. But we would like to get it done before that, because by that time,
Mhm.
enough
Sure.
time has gone by where you need it to be expedited to accomplish the goal.
Thank you. I wanted you to mention the other ordinance, what you did. And the process from there. So now that it's kind of the full cycle that we go through. So thank you.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? Councilor Fish?
Is there a different process when a vacant property may be, in the ownership of, say, a health facility because the owners, maybe had no relatives nearby, they went into a nursing home, or, they're deceased and there was just no contact, no one was responding to the registration and property has sat vacant?
There's not a different process, but there is a situation where you need response from the owner, and that is a challenge at times. In order to acquire jurisdiction to go into court, you have to acquire jurisdiction over the property owner, and that may require outside counsel to do some work, or inside counsel to do some work, because if you can't acquire the jurisdiction, you can't enforce it in court. So,
I just, have seen sometimes, health facilities or VA or other, government loan, guarantees take over a property. Sometimes they'll even, change the lock, sort of say, but then there's no communication and the properties stay vacant. So I just didn't know if it'd be different.
yeah, well, we're trying to put stages in the protocol for establishing contact and getting that type of information so that we can reduce the number of times when we have those problems.
Thank you.
Any other, Councilor Fornia?
So I remember the vacant house was probably double that,
Was,
or close to double, rather than the 58 that are currently outstanding.
there was a reduction
Mhm.
Yeah.
recently.
Substantial, yeah.
Uh,
So I know we have the 4 that are delinquent on taxes, and we're going through that process. Are there other low-hanging fruit as far as?
They're in various stages,
Right.
and
Maybe I should say within 6 or 12 months?
I don't know the numbers of that, of how many there are, but what we try to do is kind of look at when you look, at the list of which properties, have a lot going on, they're vacant and they're close to, a lien, that type of thing.
Mhm.
And those are kind of that low hanging fruit, but I don't remember how many of those are close to that. But those are the ones that we typically try to go for first.
yeah. So the 58 number was good news. It was
Yes,
in the memo.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
working well. Any other comments? Questions? Well, thank you. You sound positive about this, that it's working and showing in the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think what we've tried to do is we tried to streamline the internal process. Because there's a lot of part of this process that's external that we have to comply with. So we try to control what we can control, and that's how we respond with each other, so.
Thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. All right, next, we're gonna hear from our business development specialist. Brad is here to kind of go over what he's been working on. This is another request from the committee chair to get an update on how things are going.
Yeah, so to introduce myself, I'm Brad Wall. I'm the new business development specialist. And just to go over a few things that I have been working on over the last month and a half since I was hired is, so I am in the middle of a certification right now called Business Retention and Expansion. So it's through the organization called BREI, Business Retention and Expansion International. And the certification will be called BREC, so a Certified Business Retention and Expansion Coordinator. And again, I'm in the middle of that process. It's expected that I will receive that certification by the end of the month. I've submitted everything on my end, but now it's a waiting game. I have also been attending networking events. For example, the Bangor Region Chamber of Commerce, early bird breakfast, after hours events, and getting to know businesses in the area who are attending those. Also green drinks events, and just letting folks know that especially the local businesses in Bangor, that the city of a representative from the city of Bangor is at those events, and genuinely we're grateful that they have a business and have opened shop in the city of Bangor. I've been in attendance at informational meetings on establishing a business presence in Bangor. So far there have been several folks who, for example, are looking at opening up a business in the city of Bangor and have questions. Not by myself, but with a group, we will sit down with them and try to answer the questions that they have in opening up a business in Bangor. Most of those are in person. Some of them are video conference calls, and some of them are also about businesses that are developers, I should say, who are interested in purchasing properties within the city of Bangor. Some of those meetings are developers who've already purchased property within the city of Bangor and are looking to revitalize and renovate. I reviewed the City of Bangor Economic Development Strategic Report for 2022, and I'm currently trying to develop an implementation sheet to be able to implement the recommendations from the strategic report. And I'm also learning as much as I can about the Banner Corporation, and also working with Steve on that. That is complex in some ways, and so I'm learning where to find information and learning the properties that Banner is responsible for, and have taken a visit to the Bangor Innovation Center and met with some of the tenants, the businesses there as well.
Very nice.
Any questions at all?
Questions, comments? No, well, you've done a lot in a month and a half. Exactly.
Yeah, no question. Thanks, welcome aboard and
Thank
all
you.
that. I
Mhm.
don't think we've met. I would ask of you to ask Steve to maybe get you in front of the Upstart group, and as well as the Bangor Target group.
Mm.
I think it might, I think they're just,
Yeah,
there are so many different organizations that I think you could
Yeah.
get in front of. EMDC, SBDC, just that whole alphabet of
yeah,
stuff.
they're working on those connections.
Yeah. And if I can help with any of those, I would
Okay.
certainly
Thank you.
be glad to help.
Yeah.
Steve has talked to me about Upstart, so I'm learning about them, and I am not familiar with Bangor Target. Some of these organizations I'm very familiar with from my previous employment, So I know many people at EMDC and a lot of the nonprofits in the area.
Great, yeah, super.
It's good to hear that there is interest in people starting businesses and buying land to develop businesses
Mhm.
and taking over other land or whatever. So that's a positive move. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Yes. All right, next on the agenda is a update on the CDBG program year. It's that time of year already that we start thinking about next year's CDBG program.
Mhm.
Our Community Development Officer, Robin Stanicki.
Hello.
Hello.
So I wanted to give you all an update about our upcoming year and some processes that we'd like to undertake that will look a little bit differently. We are trying to look at our planning process in a yearly type of way, which is really consistent with the way that other communities that have block grant funding find that it's easier to support their nonprofits and other entities and those projects all year long by using an annual call for applications. And in that process, able to have workshops and offer technical assistance to those entities that may not be aware of funding and have not ever used that type of funding before. And this would be a really great way for us to be able to align many of the projects that we do throughout the year with the priorities that are both in our consolidated plan, but through the process of the council being able to declare, like this is the year of housing. So how are we able to let that kind of flow through the types of projects and the planning that we do throughout the year? So what we'd like to do is open up our application portal on March 1st. I'll hold a workshop for interested applicants to understand what grant funding is available, how to work with federal funding, and put together a one-page letter of interest, just so that we can screen and make sure that their project is an eligible thing that we can pay for with CDBG funds. Then we will have them fill out the full application, take about 3 weeks, to be able to do that, and then have those submitted the first week in April. This is a good timing of that submission, because then we can roll that right into preparing the action plan. And one advantage that we have of that is that we can see, my aim is to see if we can identify specific activities that we would do within our budget that account for about half of what we plan to spend. So a lot of times we create this budget and it's a little difficult because it's a little arbitrary. We're not sure, what's going to come ahead of time. But if we identify some of that, we can adjust the budget because we have some really compelling project proposals and things like that. And having that on an annual basis allows the city and nonprofits to anticipate that timing, and so that they can their capacity and timing to write those grants, they can anticipate that well ahead, to be successful in that. So yeah, that's what we'd like to do.
Very nice. Questions? Comments? Council Paul?
Goal for number of applicants, number of projects, or is it more dependent upon how much people request?
I think that is going to depend. There is certainly some reservation about having a lot of applications, simply because we'd really like to do so many things. However, what I'm trying to do is to explain through the priorities if your proposal will address these specific things, that might help us to narrow that down. That being said, we do have specific spending caps that we cannot exceed for certain types of things. So for our service provider grants, which is what I'm calling it, a service provider to give you the sense that this is a public service by a nonprofit that isn't a tangible thing. So the service provider grants, we can't spend more than 15% of our yearly allotment. So that funding is limited. And then other things like our capital improvements to nonprofit buildings, other types of development don't have those similar caps. So those awards might be larger because those things also cost a lot more money too. So it's kind of I can't really answer the question necessarily, but we'd like to be able to welcome smaller requests and then, have larger requests. There will be a similar type of question that asks whether their project would continue to be feasible if we were able to fund them with a smaller amount of money than they're asking. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good information.
Yeah. All right, next on the agenda is a couple of requests from the planning division. The first is the Maine Historic Preservation Grant for certified local governments. Councilors may recall, we went for this grant a few years ago and received it and finished that portion of the project, and now we're back to do some more. Go ahead.
Yep, so Maine Historic Preservation Commission has $95,000 available for this round for certified local governments. And that funding can be used for any types of historic preservation activities, including surveys, which we've been doing quite a few of over the past few years, writing nominations, and then educating the public about historic preservation. So we are proposing applying for the maximum amount of $30,000 from them. And that would come with a 25% required match, so $7,500 from us. And we propose to use that for surveying additional sites in the city, as well as an educational effort. And so we kind of settled on a rough plan of surveying Cascade Park, because that came out of the recent master plan they did for that. And then also some rural sites like the Bangor Grange. I think we have 2 Granges that we would want to survey. We have some homes across from the hospital on State Street that have been identified that really need that survey. Extending the Tree Street study area. And then also we would really like to study important indigenous sites in the city. So I have reached out to the tribes about that, about meeting with them on that. And then as far as the educational effort, we are talking about that looking like a course for realtors or developers on historic preservation, and that would just go over, historic districts in the city. What are the basics of historic preservation, and what are the different incentives out there for preservation, financial incentives and things like that. So that's our general plan right now. And a lot of these things were strategies in the 2022 comprehensive plan. So we are aligning it with that as well. And so the due date is March 25th. So we're requesting approval to move forward.
Okay, questions, comments? I think it would be silly not to do it. All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. And then we have a proposed land development code amendment for reducing parking requirements.
Okay. So this proposal has come out of, there's been a lot of research and cases that we've seen over the years now that parking requirements can be a major barrier to housing. Generally because the requirement to put in parking can take away space that can be used for more units. It adds cost to housing, the cost of constructing parking, maintaining parking, things of that nature. And there's been a growing trend of cities across the country that have either reduced or eliminated parking minimums. Some really well-known ones are Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then I included a few examples in your memo of Burlington and Dover. They're, good examples from New England that are kind of close to Bangor size and population. They actually eliminated parking minimums, and even instituted maximums. And then, Portland has one space per dwelling unit requirement. And so, just reading into some of these cases, they've actually been shown, especially in like Seattle, Buffalo, Minneapolis, they've been shown, to have a real impact on housing supply and housing affordability. After they instituted these changes, it was directly tied to an increasing supply of homes and reduced construction cost. So it really can make a difference on that. And then there's also, ample evidence of the negative impacts excessive parking can have on water quality. You have runoff issues, especially in our area with salt. And then also on greenhouse gas emissions from the impacts of, having that sprawl of that can often result from excessive parking can make it harder for people to walk and bike, and it can make it harder for transit to serve different parts of the city. And also when you have excessive parking, it often incentivizes people to drive rather than take some of these other modes. And so that also increases your greenhouse gas emissions. And then also you have the urban heat island effect as well from all of that pavement. So there's a lot of negative impacts from that. And then the other thing too, is that we're just seeing a lot of, developers, especially recently, when they come to us, they're saying their clientele doesn't have that much of a need for parking. They might not even have a car per household, or they might only have one. So they're just not seeing that need for 1.5 spaces per unit. And so what we're proposing is to go down to 1 space per unit. And, just to emphasize that it wouldn't say you can only put in 1 space per unit, it's just the minimum. So if their target demographic needed more spaces, they could add more, but it would just give that flexibility to developers to decide how much they need, how much, their clients will need when they sell or rent. So that's our proposal, and any questions or comments?
Questions, comments? No? Oh, Councilor?
Yeah, I think this is an incredibly smart move on us. I mean, just looking at resources in general, it's getting clearer and clearer that owning a car is a problem. It's not a right. We don't have enough copper, cobalt, nickel, and other valuable metals to help with the manufacturing for every single person in this country to own a vehicle. And so we have to adopt a multimodal transportation philosophy. This is great for our economy, but it's also great to reduce our carbon footprint overall. It's on us as municipalities to adopt this at the local level. Hopefully the state follows suit with some of their multimodal transportation philosophies that have been thrown their way, i.e. trains. But anyway, that's not for us, that's for them. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Any other comments? Oh, Councilor Chair.
I do see at the end sort of a mention of the conversation around on-street parking in the winter. I do think if we're going to move ahead with this, and I fully support it, I think it's a great idea that we need to follow up with those conversations sooner rather than later. Because if we're gonna allow more cars to park potentially on the street and have fewer parking spaces at houses, then we need to figure out what the winter plan is.
Right, yeah.
That's a good point. We have some streets that really suffer with parking on both sides. Yep.
Yeah,
Some,
and
as
yeah.
well as winter.
Every city I looked at had very specific parking rules, especially the ones that eliminated parking minimums. They did add flexibility to their winter parking rules. They just all have different strategies for doing that. So it's definitely a conversation that we need to have.
Good idea. Thank you very much. Any other last minute questions, comments? Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to do the TSA?
Yeah, you might as well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the other agenda item we didn't get to yet was the lease extension for TSA. This is just, an
A straight
extension,
renewal.
it's a 10-year lease renewal.
Or anything,
GSA, I think we sort of,
Yeah.
go ahead, Councilor Fornia.
any big changes to the agreement?
No, it's updated rent based on
Mhm.
the maximums and the whole formula you go through with the feds, but.
You
yeah,
have to
no.
have it,
No,
they
we
have
do.
to be there,
You do,
Right,
all right.
We just
and the
get rid of
current
it.
one has been expired. And everything, so we're catching up.
yeah, we're getting there.
Any other comments about the GSA lease?
You need a vote,
Recommendation. will
They
be
need
on
a
council
recommendation for us. Do we have consensus to send it to council next week? We do. It appears. Everybody's nodding, thumbs up on it.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, that's all I have.
Is
Thank you
that
so
it?
much.
all right, great. Well, that didn't take long. Thank you so much for your hard work. We will adjourn this meeting and stay tuned because we have infrastructure and with,